Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Butcherbird Presents, the show where we talk about people operating creatively in and around the digital space. If you haven't already, please like us on Facebook. That means you will get all the alerts and posts that tell you about other episodes we have of Butcherbird Presents. And today, we're very, very lucky to have oh my God, I totally forgot how to pronounce your last name again. Krikun, that's right. Oh my God, it's like...
Krikun is the actual real...
Krikun, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's funny, I saw it on email all the time, and I was like, oh, I never asked you.
But it's
Krikun,
yeah.
So guys, we have Andy Krikun here of Andy and the Rattlesnakes, a rock band in LA in the late 70s, early 80s. We're going to talk to him a little bit about that and talk about what he's doing now. Actually, let's talk about what you're doing now.
Sure.
Now. You now are a PhD in music education?
Yeah, music education.
And you are teaching at a community college in New Jersey.
Community College in Paramus, New Jersey.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I've been teaching there for about 15 years. And what we've tried to do, I'm part of also an organization called the Association for Popular Music Education. And we're a group of actually international musicians, teachers, scholars that really want to make popular music part of the curriculum. And we've done that. We've really incorporated, we teach contemporary music production, music business, and songwriting. I teach songwriting as one of the courses.
And you were saying you also had a residence in, an artist in residency program, and you've had some pretty impressive people come into that program.
Yeah, we've had John Densmore from The Doors, and Philip Glass, Suzanne Vega. This semester we have a colleague of mine from Uganda who's an amazing Ugandan musician. I did my master's here at UCLA in ethnomusicology.
Oh, right. Okay, very cool.
So world music's another one of my particular areas of interest. Yeah.
So have you really been building up this music program then at your college? That's great.
And it's been great. You know, we try to keep up with the technology and really with, it's hard to keep up with what's, as we talked about earlier, with social media and being able to, as an artist, musician, being able to take a hold of your career, you need to be fluent in recording, production technology, as well as social media and marketing techniques.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later, and we're also going to talk about Andy and the Rattlesnakes itself. Now, we're going to go back to the beginning of Andy and the Rattlesnakes in a second.
Right.
But right now, suffice it to say, you guys haven't really performed in about 30 years, right? Okay, yeah. And you performed for the first time together again on Monday night at a Sam Shepard tribute. And the reason you were at the Sam Shepard tribute is because you have a connection with Sam Shepard and his whole group of actors and people. And I want to get to that in a second as well. But one of the interesting things you were saying, this show is about people working in the digital space, and you were saying about 5 years ago, you started recording with your band again after 30 years because of digital technology, right?
Well, I was here working on my research sabbatical for my dissertation and really trying to avoid doing anything performing-wise. But all the Rattlesnakes were here except for Jeff, the sax player, who's lived in Amsterdam for the last 20 years. So the other guys convinced me to do one show at this place called The Trip in Santa Monica.
Oh yeah, I know it actually. My wife
Which was actually across the street from Platypus Records where I used to work.
Oh wow.
So we did one. I said, okay, we'll do one show, and then that went well. We enjoyed playing together. I said, let's try to finish up some old songs we worked on 35 years ago, and let's try to write some new songs. And we ended up starting the recording process and writing process. And then when I left, so I was here for 4 months on sabbatical, and then I left and I had to finish my dissertation. So then 2 years later, I was able to get back to it. And that's kind of the way it's been. And then about 3 years ago, I said, let's get Jeff from Amsterdam to remotely put his parts in.
And that's been working for you.
Yeah, so we took the tracks originally recorded in Los Angeles, sent them to Amsterdam. He added the saxophone from Amsterdam. Then I've been working with a producer, Rod Shepard, in New York. And we've been mixing, doing things, and doing other vocal parts in New York. So we have tracks from 3 different cities.
Right.
Yeah.
And we could do that now.
2 different countries.
Because pretty much the whole album can exist on a little hard drive, and you just pass it around.
And the hard thing is, are people going to think it's happening? We don't want to tell that to people necessarily, and I think it does. And maybe that's the magical part, is how do you make it where it still sounds like everybody's on the same plane together, and I think it does,
So let's go back now. Let's do it. We kind of did the overview. You have your PhD, music education, building this program. Still very much involved with the musicians you played with back then, but let's go back then.
Okay.
It was 78, 79, 1980. It was LA. Tell us a little bit about what the music scene was like back then.
Well, it was an amazing scene. We came out, my wife and I, from New Jersey, and I'd been to LA once. I had a cousin out here, and I went to the Troubadour, and actually there was this movie with Chris Christopherson and Harry Dean Stanton called Cisco Pike, about musicians, these kind of down-and-out musicians in LA and Venice, and I remember Venice.
And Harry Dean is a musician, right?
Yeah.
A friend of mine played drums for him.
Actually, he was going to be at the tribute.
Oh, really?
Unfortunately, it was kind of a tragic few months. But so when I came out, I didn't know anybody. I worked in a record store in Santa Monica. I got a job like a week later at Platypus Records in Santa Monica, where I met a lot of the musicians, and there was a great live scene here, and there was really. I know people remember and it was a great punk rock scene, but there was everything. There was blues, and there was world music, and there was reggae, and there was so many ska and different things happening.
Someone told me too, because the movie industry's here, it's like all kinds of musicians came here because they were recording for the movies, and then they would want to just play and do stuff.
And there were clubs. There were just live. I remember. I think it was called New York something, but it was a laundromat that they started booking bands there, and then Chinatown became a big thing. Madame Wong's was a Chinese restaurant, and they, and then they converted. They said, "Hey, you guys are doing. Nobody comes at night. Why don't you have bands?" And that became a scene. And Hong Kong Cafe across the street from there, and there were, Santa Monica and Venice was not gentrified like it is now.
Totally.
So,
my aunt lived in Venice in the 80s, and I would go visit her, and it would be like scary.
Yeah. Well, we lived 4 blocks from the beach, and we paid about $175. We had a studio apartment with a Murphy bed coming out of the wall.
Right.
Down the street from Bob Dylan's studio. So, it was funky, and it changed when I came back. So, I left in '81, but it was a very vibrant scene, and one of the things that really affected us is when we went to see Cowboy Mouth. And my wife and I went to see Cowboy Mouth.
Which is a play written by Sam Shepard and Patti Smith about their relationship. Right.
And it's about, she kidnaps him and wants to turn him into a rock and roll star. Right? And I went to see it and I was kind of infatuated with Patti Smith in New York.
Right.
And I had followed her even when there were, 3 people in the audience. And I was always too afraid to talk to her. But to me, she just opened up a whole new possibilities for musicians.
Right.
And bringing in theater, bringing in poetry. So seeing that play and knowing a little bit of Sam's work, I think I had read Tooth of Crime before that.
Tooth of Crime, which is
another rock and roll.
It's a musical. Yeah, if anybody is unaware, Tooth of Crime is an amazing musical that Sam Shepard wrote.
And Sam's sister did the piece.
That's right. That's right.
The tribute. So I was just blown away, but I'd never met any of the actors. And then one day while I was working at the record store, one of the actors who played the Lobster Man, Jack Slater, who I'm happen to be wearing his shirt in memory, he passed away about 10 years ago, came in and I said, "Oh my God, it's the Lobster Man." And we became really close, and he introduced me to Ed Harris and Robin Ginsburg, who were the 2 lead roles in the play, and Daryl Larson, who directed it.
So just to let you guys know, on Monday night, there was a big Sam Shepard tribute. I alluded to it earlier. And what was amazing about it is Sam Shepard's family was all there, and Ed Harris was there, and Daryl was directing the night, actually.
Yeah.
So it really was a big reunion of
Yeah, it was
all of
amazing.
the people in LA that were working on Sam Shepard pieces.
Yeah.
Right?
And a lot of them hadn't seen each other.
Right.
I mean, our band hadn't seen each other in years, but a lot of the actors hadn't seen each other in years. You know, because part of the Padua playwright scene, and so it was. I became friends with them all, and then they started to come to see our band.
So let's talk about the band a little bit.
Yeah.
So at the same time this was happening,
Right.
you begin Andy and the Rattlesnakes.
Right.
How did the band begin? Where was it in 1980?
In 1980, we finally, the personnel that we saw the other night, which is amazing that we were all able to do that.
Andy and the Rattlesnakes was the band for Monday night for the Sam Shepard tribute. All of the original, or the members of Andy and the
All of them
Rattlesnakes.
except for the drummer.
Right.
But we went through a series of drummers who were all great, who
Right.
I loved them all.
Don't we all go through
You know.
series of drummers? Okay.
But actually, even the last time we played was maybe 1985, and John, who's the drummer now, is Paul's brother. Paul Lax is the guitar player. And so John used to come see us, so he actually even corrects us, like the other night at rehearsal. He knows the music better than we do. Right?
That's
He
funny.
said, no, it didn't go that way. There's a fill here. And so, he, so yeah.
But in 1980, you guys.
So this group kind of congealed and stayed together pretty much till the end of 1981. And, I think we all came from such different places. I think.
I noticed that among you guys, everybody kind of had a different vibe.
Right?
Yeah.
Musically, personality-wise.
Because Paul played the kind of the steel guitar.
Yeah, Paul comes from more of like a country background, right? And Morley's a R&B, jazz, funk keyboard player. Jeff is a jazz, avant-garde, rock. He played with Frank Zappa, so he's coming from there. Rob is just a straight-ahead rock and roll bass player, Bill Wyman, and out of that, Rolling Stones. And so, it doesn't work on paper. If you said, but for me, I'm very eclectic, and I tend to like almost any kind of music. I tend to find something I like about it.
So let's take a look at New Wave Theater from 1980, featuring Andy and the Rattlesnakes.
Hey, Princess Dirty, what do you think of Andy and the Rattlesnakes?
They're a band with a nasty bite.
The soulful, the deep, the truth, patience, Andy and the Rattlesnakes.
Sometimes my mind's in a tailspin, my eyes open wide.
And that was Andy and the Rattlesnakes.
I
On
wonder who that kid was.
New Wave Theater. I know. It's like,
Where's he now?
Who was
right?
that? He was brilliant. We should
Well, the
really
funny
look him
thing
up.
about it is, when I show that to students, they just start cracking up because it's like, you had hair, It's like,
That's great. You say you were 25 in that group, right?
Right.
So so this is Andy and the Rattlesnakes. So simultaneously, you are in this very eclectic band full of fantastic musicians, all coming from amazing pedigrees. And at the same time, you're also wanting to integrate that band into kind of these Sam Shepard plays and other kinds of theater performance, right?
After I saw Cowboy Mouth, then I got to know Daryl and Ed and Robin and Jack and some of the other actors that were doing the Sam Shepard plays.
And you've stayed friends with all these guys over the years. So you're
years.
close to Ed Harris and you're close to Daryl and
And actually we all were at Jack Slater's memorial together, where
10
his
years
widow
ago,
gave us, each of us, he gave myself, Ed, and Paul one.
Jack Slater played the Lobster Man in Cowboy.
And in many other I think John Stepling plays, and he's done a lot of, but yeah, I was just particularly the thing that I was energized by Patti Smith early on was that kind of somewhat improvised, but also just that energy on stage.
Right.
That electric quality that you didn't know what she was going to do next.
Right.
And when I saw those, Ed and Robin and Darren, when I saw those actors perform, it's like, wow, how do I incorporate that into what I do? And particularly Sam's language and his characters. So we became kind of the house rock and roll band for Cowboy Mouth to begin with.
Right.
And we had this idea that now kind of seems, well, maybe everybody's doing it, but this idea of rock and roll theater, where they would perform a play and we would play afterwards. So there were a few plays, Sam's plays, we did that. And then I left. And after the band broke up in 1981, I did stay in touch with not just the band members, but all of the actors. And we're all still very close now.
Right.
So every once in a while, out of the blue, Daryl will call me. Daryl moved back to Nyack for a while, where I live, in New York, and we had done things there. I actually followed him back. I grew up in New Jersey, but never thought of leaving LA. I love it here. And then Daryl moved back. I said, well, there must be something about it. So we had, but out of the blue, he comes up. He had a great series at the Met Theater called Rock and Roll and Literature that we did a Bob Dylan tribute. I worked, again, John Densmore, who was there the other night. There was a Doors tribute. So Daryl's kind of been the hub,
Right, yeah.
But he'll just...
What's Daryl's last name again?
Larson.
Daryl Larson, that's right.
And he called me in August and said, hey, we're doing this tribute to Sam. You want to get the Rattlesnakes together?
And this has been 30 years since you guys have...
We actually played at Daryl's wedding, but, and I said, well, it's going to be kind of tough. Jeff's in Amsterdam. I'm in the middle of my semester, and I never do this. I never just leave.
Take off, right.
I said, but how could we not be part of this, So he said, would you be the musical director? Would you help me get all of this together? I said, okay, I was teaching an online course. We have another artist in residence this semester, but I said, yes. I don't think I've ever said no to Daryl.
Right. Okay. So it's funny.
Don't let that get around, though.
You're sitting there, you're doing these online courses, you're doing basically music of the future,
right? And
now you're going to engage with your past.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what it's about.
Right.
I think that using the modern technology to, in a way, time doesn't, or space changes, right? With the whole technology.
So this whole new kind of resurgence of the Rattlesnakes that maybe started about 5 years ago when you started doing your album is fueled in part by not only your wife, who I know is a very creative partner with you, but your daughter Daisy. And your daughter Daisy is herself a video editor and a musician in her own right. Yeah. And she's kind of now, I know that you rehearsed at our studio the day before the Sam Shepard tribute, so Sunday night. And we kind of recorded a music video for you, or at least the footage for the music video. Right. And it was Daisy that took it away on a drive. Yeah. She was it was funny. She even came to me and went, by the way, give the footage to me. Like, she was like, at that point, she's like, my parents are high. Just give me the footage. So talk a little bit about your kind of collaboration
and actually
with her.
She's been working on, we've been shooting a documentary for the last 5 years about the Rattlesnakes. So we have hours of interviews and footage.
And she's helped you with your social media, getting
everything.
Your stuff up
and then, and as you saw the other night, she's a very talented singer, songwriter herself.
Let's take a look at her, actually. Yeah. Why don't we cut to we're going to show you a clip of Andy's daughter, Daisy, singing a Patti Smith song at the Sam Shepard tribute on Monday night. So let's take a look.
So that was Daisy
Yeah, amazing.
singing Patti Smith. That was Butcherbird Studios did the shooting of that,
Right.
and that's actually the whole tribute is available right now on Padua Playwrights' Facebook page, and I believe it'll be up in a high-res format very soon on YouTube. Check back here; we'll let you know when that goes up. But it's great because Andy and the Rattlesnakes plays throughout. We're going to show you a few more clips from that as we go through this conversation. But I wanted to emphasize just kind of your partnership with your daughter
Yeah.
in this enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, I've helped her with her music, and as far as songwriting, I've given her, and she's really come into her own, and she's helped me with kind of keeping up with technology, and I'm always texting her, I'm on Instagram. What do I do now? What does this icon mean? And so and then I think she embodies kind of the contemporary artist is what we try to teach our students, which is you can't be just an artist anymore.
Right.
And as a musician, part of our music program, you need to know how to market yourself, and you need to know social media, and you need to know how to edit your videos.
You need to use Pro Tools,
right?
and yeah,
Pro Tools and Premiere.
because it's no longer kind of a specialty. It's almost a language you have to understand.
Yeah. And even in the a lot of our students go on just to work in the music industry, and that's what they're looking for too. Is do you have a student who knows Photoshop, who can make flyers for us, who can edit some clips for us, and so she works at a great audio and video post-production studio in the city in New York.
New York, yeah.
Called Plush and Red Iron, and they're all very creative, and I think that's different today too, where our jobs were I worked in a hospital or Morley worked in a shoe store, and, and Paul worked in a photo lab, and the bass player was a janitor in an elementary school, and now a lot of the creative people actually have
creative jobs,
right?
They
Like,
may be knowing exactly what they aiming to do, but they have they can fuel their creative endeavor
and then
in some way.
they still have their their own personal artistic lives at it. And I try to encourage students to be that way too. It's like it's hard to make just your living doing being just your own creative doing it, having creative freedom. Let's say,
Right.
But there is a place for creative freedom. You could create a space for that, and then be creative in other ways too. And that's for me, teaching was, my wife kind of pushed me into it. I never thought of myself as a teacher.
And your wife is an animator.
She's also an animator. She worked for animation studios here. One of the first, Robert Abel, one of the first computer animation studios back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. And she worked with him? She worked in that studio?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Great.
And so now she's been teaching longer than me. She teaches animation at a community college, web design. And I love it. I love being around young people and keeping up that way too.
Right.
And seeing how the technology is again just part of their everyday lives.
So that's it's a nice segue. Talking about spending all your days with people a lot younger than you, kind of encouraging their creative spirit, to Monday night, where you sort of went through people who actually are older than you. Right. A lot of these
Which is a rarity these days.
So why don't we spend a little bit talking about kind of Monday night and why it was special and your connection to it. And so like I said, just to reiterate, this was a Sam Shepard tribute at the Bootleg Theater here in Los Angeles. It was originally slated to be at the Met Theater. But the Met, they got so much interest in it, they needed a bigger venue, and the Bootleg stepped up.
Great venue.
It's a great venue in LA. Actually, it's a venue, as you were talking about, that has theater and rock acts and music and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that really wants to be
it was a perfect venue.
Creative hub. So if you've never been to the Bootleg Theater, check it out. We were approached by Nathan Birnbaum, who said, hey, we'd like to live stream this thing, this Sam Shepard tribute. And of course, it takes a lot to do a live stream like this. I mean, we have a crew of about 3 or 4 in the booth. This would have also required us to have 3 camera operators, and so we wanted to cover it in style, and I feel like we did a pretty good job. I mean, thanks a big part to our crew. I just wanted to mention them real quick. Stephen Calco directing, Lillian Diaz-Prispel switching, Griffin Davis monitoring Facebook feed, Jared Windler on one camera, Michael Schlane on another camera, Jason Milligan on yet another camera. A lot of that crew is here right now doing this show. But since we were doing that, right, we were just going to do a live stream. We weren't going to throw media into the cameras, but you called me and said, hey, I hear you're doing this thing for Monday. I would love to have that footage of us playing because you didn't have footage.
This is the first footage of this band. I mean, we played together in 1980, 1981. But that first clip was before Jeff Holley, who's a saxophone player, joined the band.
So this is that new wave theater clip that we showed.
Right.
Was the last time a camera was on you guys.
Correct.
As a band.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is amazing. You know, so 36 years later, this is the first video footage of this band.
Yeah.
You know?
And so you also said, hey, could we also shoot a music video?
Right.
And we worked out Sunday night for you to rehearse and then shoot the music video. So we have that footage, and then we also have the footage for the Sam Shepard tribute. And that's what obviously Daisy's going to come take and turn into a bunch of video content for you. But let's talk about the actual tribute itself. Now that I've bragged about how Butcherbird Studios did it, let's talk about the tribute itself. What made it special? What really affected you by it?
Well, I think it was just such a heartfelt tribute to Sam and his work. So it was just to see his friends, you know, pay tribute to. I had only met him once, but I was obviously very moved by his work and very influenced by his work. But to see the performance of the actors and, you know, to see it, kind of how Daryl's concept of how our band members would be interwoven. Morley Bartonoff, the keyboard player, and Jeff Holley, the saxophone player, and John Lax, the drummer, backed up Tom Bauer doing the Nina Simone.
Right.
monologue.
That was incredible.
You know?
Yeah, it was this kind of almost freeform jazz kind of background to the Nina Simone piece that Sam Shepard wrote. Right.
And you know, to see John Densmore, who's been playing with us, he's featured on one of the tracks on our new record. To see him perform with Alan Mandel doing Tongues and
which was the first piece. That was amazing. It was Alan Mandel, who was like I think 89 or 90 years old, animated and doing this Sam Shepard piece with John Densmore providing percussion and also some of the dialogue.
And a lot of people don't know that Sam started off as a drummer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a drummer in the Holy Modal Rounders.
Oh, wow.
And that's one reason I was always attracted to his. There was also a musical knowledge. You know, he would drop these really obscure allusions to old blues singers, and he knew American music back and his language was musical, his rhythm. So that's, as a musician, for me, he brought that all into his art, his theater work. So that anything, that piece I thought was, there wasn't every moment was amazing. I mean, of that night, I don't think there was one moment where you said, "Oh, I wish they didn't do this," or
even the mistakes were fun. Right. I mean, there was one moment with Ed Harris, who's a very good friend of yours, right? That one of the music stands holding the music fell over.
Right.
And he sort of looked at the stand and looked to the wigs, and someone ran out and put it up, right? And fixed it and ran off. And he just looked at the other music stand and knocked it over. And then looked to the wings, waiting for someone to come pick it up.
To me, that really, watching that encapsulated, why I think it's such a great actor.
Well, you had mentioned
that instinct. Of
you had mentioned Patti Smith. You didn't know what she would do on stage, and that's what was so electrifying about her performances. And I guess in a way, Ed Harris sort of embodied that because we were like, wow, we don't know what he's going to do.
Right. And and so that was one of my favorite moments.
And it was a mistake.
But it was just a beautiful, between. It was great to back up Sam's Sister Sandy doing
Yeah,
her
yeah.
piece, and Murray's tribute to Sandy.
This is Murray Mendick, the playwright,
Yeah.
who Murray Mendick, Sam Shepard, and Maria Reen Fornez formed Padua Playwrights together, which is a theater group here in LA that yielded a lot of really influential playwrights in the time period of like the 80s and 90s, particularly.
Yeah.
And that tribute was really moving.
Yeah, and then of course doing Brownsville Girl with
Yes.
with
So actually,
Bill,
so this is a Bill Pullman.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Brownsville Girl's a song.
yeah, and Daryl said, again, he said, I wanted to end on Brownsville Girl.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and which when Daryl gives me ideas, I said, okay, I'll say yes, and then I'll think about it. Is this really going to work? Or is this possible?
Because Brownsville Girl is
11, I think almost 12 minutes. long.
Right.
It's a song that Bob Dylan and Sam Shepard wrote together.
Right. And Daryl at rehearsal was saying that Sam Shepard once told him, we actually had a half hour of this stuff.
Yeah.
He just kept writing and writing and writing.
And but Bob, for Bob Dylan to have a long song is not unusual.
Sure.
I think Sad Eyed Lady of the Lowlands may be longer, but still to perform it live.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the band said, how do you do a 12? How do you pull this off? Well, and dynamics is key in that song because if it's the same chord change, same chord progression.
Yeah, the whole time. Yes.
Except for the opening. It's beautiful. We had the great singers in the Angel City Choir join us and rehearsing here Sunday night. So that added a beautiful texture. But, you have the dynamics. Without the dynamics, that song would just not happen.
Right,
it
right.
would be
But the cherry on the sundae was, of course, your main Bill Pullman, who actually performed this.
And I was amazed that he, and we had to follow. I mean, the hard thing is, it's also, being able to follow a sing. I mean, I try to tell that to musicians too. It's your job is to, and John Densmore always said his job was to follow this Jim Morrison.
Right, exactly.
If he, and that's again going back to the Patti Smith. If you
never know what he's
If you
gonna
go
do.
left, the band has to go left. You can't say, oh, well, he went left and we didn't practice it that way. You can't do that.
Right.
So, but Bill did such an amazing job of the phrase. I tried to do it at rehearsal on Sunday, and I'm a Bob Dylan fan, and I could. Even I had trouble getting through it.
When I heard you rehearsing it, it's like you sounded like Bob Dylan doing it.
But it's there's a lot of tricky phrasing, and it was just so great to work with Bill. And I think we rehearsed it for the first time right before the show.
Right? Yeah. And it's almost like a monologue almost. Well, actually, let's stop talking about it. Let's actually see a clip from Brownsville Girl. By Bill Pullman and Andy the Rattlesnakes. Let's take a look at it now.
I'm standing in line in the rain to see a movie starring Gregory Peck. Yeah, but it's not the one that I had in mind. He's got a new one and it's out now. And I don't know what it's about, but I'll see him in anything. So I'll stand in line. Oh, Brownsville, with your Brownsville girls, where more girls look like a shining ball. Brownsville girls, show me all around the world. Brownsville girl, you're my honey love.
Hey, here we go. That was
Great.
Bill Pullman and Andy the Rattlesnakes doing Brownsville Girl. What I think is so amazing is we often ask for questions, and I feel we've gotten just got comments and strange things. I'd love to be able to address
Any
some of
interesting ones?
Maybe you could decipher some of them
yeah.
for us. Well, first of all, we got a note about how tough the bar was at your hometown, the Taurus.
something?
Oh, yeah.
Is there a story behind that?
Well, there is, and actually that we mentioned it in the video that we shot here the other night. That's hopefully coming out in the next in this fall. Our first single, "Last Summer to Dance," which was really kind of created in that bar. It's a place called the Tourist Tavern in Venice, California. And we were talking earlier how Venice was it's nothing like it is now.
Right.
And we got a regular gig there, and so we were kind of able to develop on our own and play 3 or 4 sets a night and throw in covers, and it was a rowdy crowd. And one night we saw this guy dancing and kind of acting weird, and then the bartender came up and he said, "Someone's been shot."
Oh, wow.
In the audience.
Okay.
He said, "You need to, after the song, you need to stop and tell everybody to leave, but don't tell them why."
Oh my God, okay.
So by the time the song ended, the word had got around and people are leaving, and he was actually shot in the foot, and he was out on the dance floor bleeding.
Right.
Now, at the time, because Venice was tough, it took the police a long time to get there, and he almost bled to death.
Oh, wow.
And what had happened was one of our friends was a registered nurse, and they were going to take his socks off, and she said, "No, that's a natural tourniquet, leave it on."
Okay.
And he lived, and I guess the guy across the street was in a rocking chair with a gun on his lap
And
when
just
the police came.
Oh.
And I don't know whatever happened after that.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it was that kind of place, but it was away from later on we played the Starwood and the Whiskey and all the rock clubs, but this was sort of our place to develop as a band.
Right.
It was an amazing
That's great.
experience. Yeah.
So we have one. Does he remember if he played second base for the Lonesome Heroes? What's that?
Lonesome Heroes was our softball team.
You had a softball team?
Yeah, Ed Harris was on that, and
Because nothing says rock and roll
more than
like a softball team.
Yeah, we were from a bunch of Lonesome Heroes. We got the title. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't remember I played second base, but I'll.
But
take,
now, because of
I'll
the
take their word for it.
wonderful thing about social media is you remember lots. It's a collective memory that kind of happens. Yeah. Well, I think that was great. I mean, we could talk for ages about this stuff, and I would love to hear more about the music scene in the late '70s or early '80s in LA. It always fascinates me. It's been great chatting with you. Thank you for spending some of your time out here talking with us.
Oh, it's been a great week, and it's not over yet because we're playing at the Trunk Art Gallery in Mar Vista on Saturday night. It's an art opening for an artist, Ren River. And one of our percussionists, Mike Tempo, is also a great visual artist who helps run the gallery there.
Right,
so and then I go back. Then Jeff and I go back, and then he goes back to Amsterdam. So Saturday night, Trunk Art Gallery, and stay tuned for the new Andy and the Rattlesnakes album.
Right, and the music video, and all the other videos that Daisy's going to put together for you. It's going to be really a fantastic time.
So thank you for,
Well, thank you. Again, this is a little bit of and it was interesting when we were talking about bringing you on as a guest too. Because we try to talk about the digital space and using the digital space here. And one of my partners, Stephen Calco, had mentioned, God, it'd be great to have his daughter on too. It'd be like, but she had to leave and take off. So, She is watching. Hopefully, sometime in the future, the two of you can come on.
We'd love to.
And maybe talk about kind of some of the stories we didn't get to, and also where Andy and the Rattlesnakes is after this album comes out and after the videos and after the big push. That'd be really great.
Yeah, we're hoping to come back in March to do our release party. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'd definitely love to come
back.
Come to the release party. And we'd like to go out on another piece from Monday night with Jim Storm, who is an actor here in LA, who also worked a lot on Sam Shepard material, John Stepling material. Is a fantastic creative in his own right. And again, Andy and the Rattlesnakes backed him up on Monday night. It was the last song. This is how the night closed on Monday night.
And that was the last, that was added the day before.
Right. Jim
know.
like walked into the studio and you guys rehearsed it here.
Well, he had called me when I flew in on Saturday. I had spoken to him, and he said how moved he was that we were part of the tribute to Sam, and he wanted to pay tribute by leading, the singers and the audience in this all traditional American song, "Will the Circle Be," a gospel song, "Will the Circle Be Unbroken." So I talked to Daryl. I said, after Brownsville Girl, let's go out with that. And
Yeah.
it was. I think it fit.
And we'll go out with it as well. Real quick, guys, thank you so much for watching Butcherbird Presents again. Again, if you haven't liked us on Facebook, please do. Then you'll get alerts for other Butcherbird Presents shows that we do. Again, this is episode 18. I'm so excited. And I'm so excited for Andy to be here. And we're going to go out on Jim Storm and Andy and the Rattlesnakes. The last song on the at the Sam Shepard tribute called
"Will the Circle Be Unbroken."
Will the Circle Be Unbroken?
I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw that hearse come rolling, oh, to take Sammy away. May the